Right. That's what it is. Okay, so 3-5 exponential and logarithmic models. So they want to mix it up a little bit and do a different formula. Listen, it is per formula. Yeah. So A equals P e to the RT. Except instead of P, they put A sub 0. Instead of rate, they put K. I don't know why. They just wanted to.
See, this is why people don't like math.
Right. Honestly, I want to say, don't quote me. I think that's more of a science part, the top part. I don't know if that's like the variables they use.
I have that quote written down. I'm gonna go to this.
That's the best kind. It's the best kind of science.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
That's science. Yeah, I agree.
P is still your principal, what you start with. R is still your rate. T is still your time in years. All the things still apply. Okay. So let's talk about this example for a second. They are giving me my initial, but they're also asking how long it takes to double my money. So if you think about it, if I start off with $20,000, how much is double that? Then we have E raised to our rate. If it's 10.5 originally, we move the decimal place. And it says how long does it take? Now, what would be our first step technically here? What do we do first to get T by itself?
You divide 40,000 by 21.
Right, so if we divide, which I didn't give myself enough space for this, if we divide by 20,000, what do we get on this right or left-hand side? 2. So think about it. I don't even have to know my initial amount to know if they ask me the question, how long does it take to double? I'm just going to have a 2 over there. How long does it take to triple? I'm just going to have a 3 over there. I don't have to know my initial. Just like with half-life, it would be a half over there, okay? But if they give you your initial, then you double it, and then you divide, and it ends up being, again, a 2. So when we have a situation like this, for it to be familiar, you can put your 2 over here and go ahead and go around the world, okay? Go ahead and solve for your time. You need a calculator, it's open. So if today is Wednesday, we will review on Friday, then your test will be on Tuesday. Just a heads up.
Is it the last one?
I'm sorry?
Is it not 3.6?
Let's see if I can.
This week is so weird.
I know. And it's really throwing me off that y'all are now behind the B days. I mean, with all like the inclement weather days and stuff like that, it'll probably fixed back. But yeah, that's throwing me off because y'all are HK and you should be learning material first. But now it's all mixed up. I went through and planned until the end of this semester, if you will, even though we don't have semesters anymore. I'm actually not going to start trig until after Christmas. The reason for that being is I would hate for y'all to learn and memorize and have it in your brain, the unit circle for chapter 4, and then go on Christmas break and then come back and be like, I forgot that whole unit circle. So I'm going to try and throw in the little chapters between now and December. And then that way when we come back in January, it's just game on trig for the rest of the year. Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't want y'all to go through the process of having that unit circle in the back of your mind constantly and then
When are we gonna start our final for this class?
do it.
When are we gonna have our final in this class? It's like we have 8 finals, so I assume we're gonna have to start
In
taking
May.
them earlier. Wow, okay. That'd be like more like April.
That's a long time from now.
Is it really?
And I have to see when y'all's college exam will be.
5 months.
It'll be here before we
It's
know.
less than half a year.
All right, so that'll be weird because Chase will be a year old.
DJ.
In May. Or in May. Listen at me. In April. Okay. No, I was thinking May from the end of the year, and then I thought, no, his birthday's it's the 8th. So depending on when they ask you what to round to, if they want the nearest year, they want how many decimal places, whatever. If they don't specify, I can't be picky when I grade. Okay. So again, if they don't, let's say they didn't even give us how much money we put down at the beginning. If they just say, as long as this takes to double the money, automatically you could jump right in to not worrying about the principal, okay? Just like if they say, how long does it take to triple their money? You could just put a 3, all right? That's how it's going to be in your homework, where it's just going to do that, and they're not going to give you an initial, okay? All right, so let's talk about this half-life stuff.
So we're actually doing Half-Life stuff.
Yeah. All right, so normally with these word problems, I know y'all don't write down the actual word problem, but I want you to write this one down.
I did this in chemistry.
Yeah.
I did spot.
I did this in chemistry, so I think I have to do it now.
I got it.
Yeah, Dane says we don't have to do it.
I actually got like a 99 on my chemistry final too, so like I basically got chemistry so much, so I don't.
Basically, invented
Yeah.
chemistry.
Was it a state final? No,
that was-
chemistry's not.
That was the teacher one that I did.
Yeah.
I don't think she is. No, I haven't kissed.
Oh, so you got a proper education.
Yeah. It was,
Oh, be nice.
I had mission for 2 years.
Y'all, remember, things are recording.
what, is she watching?
She watches
your
your-
I
She has access to your class.
also have evidence now that I could use against you.
He's already. Take him to court.
I actually never had an Michelle. Everybody said she was so bad. I never got
Y'all,
Dr. Cliff was the goat.
be
it. I
nice.
assumed you
Because
guys
it's like-
were
it's just
because
Yeah, me and Dave had Dr.
She's so
Cliff.
smart, that's
I like
hard
her.
for her to like do you.
Stuff is easy.
I have that same problem.
No, you don't.
I learned well in your class.
Oh, thanks.
It's not to say that you're not smart.
Huh.
But you can.
That's exactly what
kind
he
of made
said.
it sound like
It's
that
okay,
when he
I
said
just
it.
want to be able to conceptualize information and really it, so
That's really it.
congratulations.
Congratulations, you're smarter than Michelle.
No.
Oh. Okay, so with
On a
this,
teacher hierarchy chart, who is the
these
first?
particular questions, to start the problem just in general, all you need is the beginning part, okay? That beginning part is enough to get you started, all right? Then from there, we'll use what we get from that one to actually do a second part of the question, okay? So, and this is how you're going to approach all of these half-life problems, all right? Your first, like just them telling you the half-life is what's going to give you the information you need to then find the actual answer to the question. So you got to kind of do things twice, all right? So, the half-life, meaning how much of the material is left after this many years, or half of the material is left after this many years. We got to figure out our rate. We don't know our rate. So if I set up the first part, and then if I look at the second part of the question, at the amount after 1,000 years, notice how those are two different times. Okay, so that's why we're going to have two different equations here. So in the end, we end up with 1.5. We don't know our initial. We know our time. We still don't know our rate. So notice how the first equation has one unknown and the second equation has two unknowns. So we take the first equation and get r by itself, and then we use that r to then solve for our initial, okay? So again, if you want to put that equals 1/2 on the other side so you can go around the world, but we have the natural log of 1/2. And then we're going to divide by 1,600. Now, I want to make sure we leave this in our calculators so we can have the most pure answer possible, but you can leave a rounded decimal at the beginning, just for note's sake. Okay, see that E in there in your answer? Remember, that means to move the decimal place 4 places to the left. Negative 0.00043. So if it says e to the -7, we move it 7 places to the left, and so on. Okay? So now we have our rate. So we're going to use this, that's still in my calculator, and plug it in for r. All right? A couple of different ways you can approach this problem. You can do, how would we get, let me ask this question, how would we get our principal by itself if that r was plugged in? Looking at this problem, if I had r plugged in, how do we get p by itself? What's happening between these two terms? Multiplication, so we would divide. Okay, so technically in your calculator, so if I have natural log of 1/2 divided by 1,600. Okay, so technically I would be dividing all of this right here. E raised to whatever my rate was times 1,000. So I can do 1.5, but I'm actually going to do alpha y equals 1.5 divided by e raised to the answer that I just got times 1,000. So our initial amount is about 2.3133, again, depending on how many decimals I asked for. Okay. Now, again, if you wanted to, you could put this in the calculator and then do it step by step if you wanted to. You're just going to be off a little bit on decimals. If you do that, just make sure you show your work, and then I'll give you credit as I follow along. Once you start going more and more precise on your decimals there, if you start rounding more, then it, of course, is going to change the value of the problem. Questions about half-life? So we use the half-life information to then solve what they're really asking us. Usually it's to figure out our rate. Okay? Oh, come on. There we go. Write this one down, but be careful on what they're asking you. I was in autopilot and I started solving it like the last problem. Good morning. I get those out preparing it, that's why. You don't have to get it signed or anything.
You see that some dude won like $26 million off the bridge?
That's what he came in saying. That's crazy.
He called it like months ago.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Surely he's not the only one, though. I guess that's just the only one that has that much, that won that much off of
Pretty
it.
accurate, guys.
So,
Someone been on Michael White to be back on that. I don't know, I was trying to keep him on.
See that Zillow cut 25% of their employees yesterday?
No.
Who?
Why?
Zillow, they shut
house
down their home flipping business because of supply chain problems. They
Wow.
weren't making profit anymore, so they shut down the business, and 25% of their employees are out of jobs now. That's like 2,000 something people.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were starting to buy homes themselves.
Yeah, they buy them and then flip them and sell them.
Well, like even not flipping, just buying it in general. Because I have a friend of mine that's in Nashville, and she said it was between them and Zillow that the client was picking who was gonna have the house. I'm like, I didn't know they were literally buying houses. It's not one that needed to be flipped, but I thought that was crazy.
Yahoo permanently moved out of China.
Do it.
Yahoo permanently moved out of China.
And just like
Oh, wow.
exciting.
Yes,
There
I
you go.
didn't know Yahoo was in China.
He's like that. He's that bottom like scroll thing.
They were the last American internet company to be in China. Most of them used it for easy labor, but now that's all digital. It was just legal problems, so they moved out.
That's cool. Where are they going to?
Here,
Where?
probably California.
Columbus.
All right, so half-life, again, we start off 1/2 e raised to the 5,730. We're going to find our rate. And, whoops, I forgot my 1/2 in there. Again, if I want to leave a rounded answer just on my notes, I can. Again, it's still e to the -4, so I'm going to move the decimal 4 places to the left. All right, now the next part says if the initial amount is 12, find the amount after 1,000 years. So if we have our rate now, and then our time is 1,000 years, I can keep this in my calculator and go straight to plugging it in. So I have natural log of 1/2 divided by 5,730. And then now I can do 12 e raised to my answer times 1,000. All right, so 10.63, however many decimals they wanted there, okay? So half-life, they give you enough information to find your rate. Then from there, you can answer whatever question they have. All right, any questions on that from y'all? Yeah.
Why don't they teach us logs until now? Like I feel like this would have been very useful before algebra 2.
Before algebra 2.
Yeah.
Like doing what?
Like I had never even heard of a log until
Right.
under 2.
You wouldn't need it until then because algebra 1 and pre-algebra are more so just
I
solving.
just mean like in general, like in life.
It's more advanced than just solving for x with a linear equation.
Okay.
That's all. But yeah. All right. One thing I want y'all to look at real quick in your calculators, and it gets people every single time on the test.
Every time.
Every time.
Can you guarantee?
Every time. Go to stat and go to calc. Within that list, if I'm asking you to find a logarithmic model, what would you use? Do what?
Is it number 9?
Number 9. Now keep scrolling. It's not logistic. Okay. That one, they would literally have that in the question. Find a logistic model, something or whatever, and you would use that one. But you are using the natural log when they ask you for a logarithmic.
What even is a logistic?
It's a different, I don't know if I have any data plugged in here for it to, a lot of times it says error, but no, this one worked. So it's just a different formula. But if we do,
That literally could not mean less than.
so this is still, a lot of people just forget that natural log is a logarithm. And so that's why I want to make sure that y'all see that there. If I asked you an exponential regression, that one's really obvious. It says exp reg.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I've been getting on.
That's fine.
I've been putting in order.
Okay, so if they ask you for a logarithmic model, you're going to use that ln. Okay, but it's going to be the same thing that we've been doing 100 times, is plugging that stuff into the calculator. So you're going to run into other questions where they're just going to have you finding pieces of those different formulas. But again, process is going to be very similar. So like I said, today was pretty short in terms